Hey guys, I'm very excited about today and a number of things that are about to happen as you are listening along. It hasn't been no secret, especially if you've been listening for a while, that the last year has been borderline impossible. Not just for me. I feel like maybe that's been everybody in the whole entire world, and especially lots of people within the US, but my world specifically has been exceptionally difficult. I am very fortunate that there are a handful of other people who are always on the other end of the phone, so that when whatever shit hits whatever fan, I have a reliable network of people who have unfailingly been there. And I consider myself so fortunate, despite the fact that the last year has been nearly impossible, despite the fact that there have been days that I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I have never done it alone. Even on the days where it felt completely isolating, I have never done it alone. If I look back on the last year, as much as it's been horrifically difficult, that is something that I can count as maybe the greatest blessing in my life. And the reason I say that now specifically is because I happen to be fortunate enough to have one of those people who is always on the other end of the phone here with me today. If you have not followed Cindy Gallop on LinkedIn, please go do it. For a number of reasons. One, we're all being throttled, and so extra followers helps, and you should very intentionally go find her content because it's excellent. But also because everything she says is correct. Everything she says is right. Everything about women in business, about funding female founders, about standing up to the patriarchy, about, I don't know, probably soup. I would imagine your perspectives on soup are also correct. We probably agree. Also, she posts really swanky photos from the Virgin Atlantic Lounge with drinks I just really want to drink. Airplanes aren't my thing, so I might have to figure out how to make one home. So very, very, very fortunate to have the wonderful and magical Cindy Gallop with us today. We are going to get into both some very tough topics and just some funny topics. So Cindy, thank you so much for being here. I am delighted to have you. I would love for you to give a brief background of yourself to everybody who's listening along, and then we'll get into some trouble as we always do.
My background is 40 years working in brand building, marketing and advertising, which is actually a very good experience for what I do now, because I've effectively spent 40 years working in the business of getting people to do things that they originally had no intention of doing, which is advertising. And these days, I'm the founder and CEO of Make Love Not Porn. We are pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. We've just launched makelovenotporn.academy, which is an extension of our brand, which is a global sex education aggregator hub to make it easy for parents, teachers, children, young people, adults to find the open, healthy sex education resources that they need at a time when those are being blocked, censored, and deplatformed everywhere. And alongside that, I work as a personal coach, a consultant, and a public speaker.
I was very new to LinkedIn, and I was like, who is this woman, and can she be my best friend? And what I will say is you have a giant LinkedIn following. And I say this as somebody who has a big LinkedIn following. You dwarf me, which is not a complaint. You should. But you are maybe the most approachable, authentic person on LinkedIn. I don't think I've ever commented on something and not gotten a response. You answer your emails. You'll tell people to shut up when they need to, which I very much appreciate. It wasn't like some big thing where I literally just reached out to you on LinkedIn one day and I was like, I think I need to learn from you. And you were like, cool, awesome, let's do it. That was the whole of it. When I say, this is not an exaggeration, when I say I would not have made it through the last year of my life without you, that is not an exaggeration. You have been a force within my brain when you're there and when you're not, because you're really good at leaving little Easter eggs that dive into the brain wrinkles that will pop up, and I'll be like, that's Cindy talking to me right now. I do hear voices, and occasionally it's you. You saw me on some of my worst days in the last year. This sounds very self-aggrandizing, and it's not meant that way. But usually when I talk to people about business, it's people who want to pick my brain about business. It's people who are struggling in their own right, which is fine. I love having those conversations and I will have them forever. But no matter the age of the person, they're usually coming to me looking for advice, which again, I love and I will do forever. But that gets very, very isolating because I'm great at business, but there are still days where I'm like, shit, I have no idea what I'm doing. Who do I ask? Who do I talk to? So having somebody who I can realistically say, I bet this person has been through this before. I bet this person has a perspective on it that I can trust. That has been transformational in my career because the shit that I'm coming to in my career, you figured out. And that matters a ton. Anyway, so I give that prologue because I like to hear my own voice, but also because I think I might need my ass kicked. We had planned to talk about some stuff, which we will maybe get to at the end. But if I feel like I need my ass kicked, I'm going to guess that most of the people who are listening need their ass kicked or need to hear what I can only anticipate is going to be the brilliance that you respond with. We've done a lot of the hard things. We survived the impossible. We have survived really tough family stuff. We sold the business. We are figuring out what's next. We built up our consulting side a lot, which has been amazing. But I have not found the part where I feel like myself publicly again, which is a strange place to be after 5 years where I have made literally a whole podcast on being myself publicly. And it is making me think maybe this voice isn't needed. Like maybe the reason that I don't feel drawn to it right now is because there are other people who need to be saying the things that I say, and maybe it's not me. And I know that every time I've said that, you have all but threatened to end me in loving ways, in the lovingest ways. I feel like my brain or my soul maybe has not caught up to the reality of where we actually are right now as we progress through and improve. And I can't figure out where that is. And we have conversations every week about like, do we need to keep doing this? Do we need to keep doing things publicly? What are we saying that matters? And so I would love the good old Cindy ass kicking. I know you're not going to tell me how to fix it necessarily, but you will tell me what the path is to getting to the other side and figuring out the right thing. And that's, I think, what I need right now.
So what I would say, Lauren, is first of all, I was very pleased to hear as we kicked off this podcast that you have a vacation coming up, because I think that is a very good thing. And you know that I've spoken to you about that before. And so I'm delighted to hear that you have, as I understand it, rented a lovely house with a pool somewhere lovely, and you're going to go and lie by that pool and do nothing. And so first and foremost, I would say go and do that because you need to do that. And honestly, first of all, I just think you're going to find taking that break really helpful in resetting and getting back in the game, as it were. And secondly, Lauren, I will just say to you, we are at a time in history where we need everybody to speak their truth who is willing to. And I say that because there are a ton of people out there who will not, who really need the rest of us to do so. And, I say that about the times we're going through now. We especially need role models for women who are willing to speak truth to power, to say what they really think, to stand up for what they believe in, to live the lives that they want to live, to encourage other women, especially, to do the same. So there is no scenario in which your voice should not be heard.
Does the confidence in that, does that come with time, with experience? Is that just innate that you popped up one day and knew that these are the voices we needed to hear and being louder than other people is important when you want to be heard?
In my case, I think it's a combination of two things. The first is the realization that honesty does come with time and getting older, which is I don't give a damn what anybody else thinks, which is the only way to live your life. As you undoubtedly have heard me say before, fear of what other people will think is the single most paralyzing dynamic in business and in life. You will never own the future if you care what other people think. And then the second thing is, and I've been saying this to people for a very long time now, for anyone who's never done this exercise, take a long, hard look inside yourself and identify what you stand for, what you believe in, what you value, what you're all about. In the first instance, doing that makes life so much simpler because life still throws you all the shit it always will, but you know exactly how to respond to that shit in any given situation in a way that is true to you. And that, honestly, is the secret of happiness. Living your life and working your work in a way that is true to you. But that's also what gives you confidence, because when you know that you are living and working your value, That's the only thing that matters. You don't need to care what anyone else thinks. You can have the complete confidence to do what you know is the right thing for you to do.
I'm the one who says to people all the time, what other people think about you is not your business. And I believe that. I do. But I do find that the current climate feels so toxic. I'm thinking about it a lot more than I ever did before. And that is not like me at all. So where do you get to the point where if what you know about you and what someone believes about you are not the same thing, that doesn't affect you? Is that just a matter of showing them different? And if they don't want to believe it, it's fine? There's like a gap there that I can't figure out how to bridge right now. And this is very unlike me. I've never been like this before in my life.
Honestly, Lauren, if somebody thinks something of me that is not true, I don't care. I ignore it. Someone who thinks something of me that is not true is completely irrelevant to me. There is no universe in which I need to take account of that because it's ridiculous.
Is there a trick for building that armor? I've never been this person, and I find myself in the last year being this person a whole lot more than I thought possible.
I've been saying this to people for a long time. Stay away from people and places and things that make you feel bad about yourself. Okay? I may occasionally come across something online where somebody is saying something ridiculous about me. The moment I realize that's what it is, I absolutely close the page. I do not read any further because I don't need to see that. I remember years ago, there was somebody, a white man, and I say that deliberately because that's where this came from. I think this is somebody in my industry, advertising, who basically kept writing blog posts about me and how awful I was in all sorts of ways. He was fixated. I did this much more back in the day when I was running an ad agency and needing to monitor my coverage. And also I did this back in the day, by the way, when Google was a lot more effective than it is currently. But every so often I would Google myself to check what coverage had come out, etc. Whenever I Googled myself, one of the things that would come up was this gentleman had written yet another nasty blog post about me, and I would see the first line, which made it very clear. And I never, ever clicked through to any of those posts. I have no idea how they continued beyond the first line because I did not need to read them. So that's what I mean when I say stay away from people and places and things that make you feel bad about yourself. The moment you see something in the corner of your eye, ignore it, shut it down.
So have you had experiences in your career where maybe you have done the wrong thing or wished you had handled something differently and that impacted maybe somebody's perspective of you? How do you address from that perspective?
Yes, I absolutely have. And first of all, I would just say to that, Lauren, something that I've had occasion to say to all my employees in different companies over the years. It's more important to be respected and not necessarily liked than liked and not necessarily respected. And I say that because you're asking about decisions I've made in a business context, which were not always popular, but were the right decisions for the business. Okay. And the reason I make that point is because too many people in business want desperately to be liked. And that can come actually at the expense of respect. And again, when I was explaining this point to people who work for me, I would say the reason it's better to be respected, not necessarily liked, is because you can absolutely be that boss that everyone loves going for a drink with on Friday evening, a real laugh at the holiday party. But when times are tough and the chips are down, your people want to know that they have a leader who will get them through those tough times no matter what. And that's not the person who desperately wants to be liked down the pub. So we all do things that may not land well with some people, but we're doing what we do because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Let's say we have somebody who maybe does not have the track record that you and I do of having a big mouth on the internet. And they want to find their footing, they want to find their way in, but they're not sure where to start. And it's really scary. The first time I ever posted on LinkedIn, I was so scared about making an idiot of myself that I had 5 people read it before I post. Now I just post the fuck word all the time. I don't care. Nobody reads my stuff before I post it. Unless it's like a partnership thing that I have to get approval on. But other than that, nobody reads my stuff. But at the time, I was so scared. Silencing myself doesn't do anything for anybody, but also being loud and not encouraging other people to do it also does not get us the diversity of voices that we need. Maybe the world needs my voice, but it doesn't need only my voice. So how do you get somebody from teetering on the edge of maybe I would like to say something unpopular, which, by the way, I've never actually heard an unpopular opinion that was unpopular, unless it's just a bad, misogynistic, shitty white man thing, which happens. But I've almost never heard an unpopular opinion that was actually unpopular. I just hear opinions that nobody else wants to say. And so how do you encourage somebody to get from that I'm not ready yet to actually diving in?
So my startup before Make Love Not Porn was called If We Ran the World. And I had to back burner If We Ran the World when Make Love Not Porn blew up. Because even I, superhuman as I am, cannot run two startups simultaneously. I had to pick. And Make Love Not Porn is literally the startup the world asked for. So I backburnered If We Ran the World, although I would love to reactivate it one of these days because it's still badly needed. If We Ran the World was a co-action platform that enabled brands and their consumers to come together around shared values in order to walk the talk together, to co-act and collaboratively and collectively co-act on those values in a way that would make good things happen for the brand, for the business, for the consumers, and for society in general. And the atomic unit of If We Ran the World was the micro action. I designed my business, as I do with Make Love Not Porn, around my own beliefs and philosophies. And I believe that change happens from the bottom up, not the top down. Every single one of us, every day, taking micro actions, small, simple, easy to do actions, so easy to do, why wouldn't you do them? Taking micro actions to change what we want to see change, cumulatively adds up at scale to enormous impact. And I'm telling you this because when I talked about If We Ran the World, and I still to this day talk about the concept of micro actions, what I would say to people was there is one single micro action that you can begin taking today. It's really easy, doesn't require any particular talent, skills, whatever. It is the one micro action that will change your life and your work for the better immediately. And it's very simply this: say what you think. No, really, say what you really think, because nobody does. I explain to people that when you begin saying what you think, that is a fantastic filter. So, for example, at work, in a meeting about whatever, say what you really think. Because that is why that business hired you. They hired you because they wanted your unique perspective, insights, thoughts, contributions. And if you give them that and they do not respond, welcoming them, then you know you need to get the fuck out. You do not want to work anywhere where you cannot bring your unique perspectives and insights and contributions to the table and have that be welcomed and well received. Equally, say what you think on social. Be yourself on social. That's what I always advise, because you will attract to you the people who completely concur and you'll repel the ones who don't. And you want to repel the ones who don't, because who the hell wants to have anything to do with them?
I say this to people all the time. The greatest joy of finding your authentic self or figuring out who your authentic self is in a public setting is letting people self-select out.
Exactly.
Again, that's something I've always been good with. I think as visibility grew, people got louder about it, which didn't used to bother me before the last year. And that is where I think I expected that was going to be a quiet action, that people were just going to be like, unfollow or block. Like, please hit the block button. I love it when you hit the block button. I don't want you to see me either. Block. And sometimes it just wasn't quiet. And that was a shock to the system. And I don't know why, because it's not like I didn't know that those things happened. Now, it happened in ways that were very scary. And that maybe that was the difference, that it stopped being necessarily things that were happening on a screen. And in some cases became things that were happening on my front porch by people who were not invited. But every reaction is information. You will find out quickly if that is a person you want in your ecosystem or not. And being able to assess, this isn't right, I'm going to bounce out, even if that's not a fast timeline. Making the decision that you are not going to continue to invest in where you are, even if it's going to take you a year to find the next thing, just knowing that is power. And I think probably where I'm struggling is the fact that intellectually I know all of this. I still say it to people all the time. I almost never tell people things I don't practice myself, and I feel like I'm not practicing some of those things right now. That leads me to Another question that popped into my head while you were explaining that. How many times in your career have you been called difficult?
I'm sure I've been called difficult a lot behind my back.
Once people get to know me after being terrified by me, they will tell me that they were scared of me when they first met me. I don't know why. It's probably the resting bitch face, which is fine. That's just the way my face is. Anybody who says it's resting bitch face, it's actually resting thinking face. You are punishing people for having things going on behind their eyes, but that's neither here nor there. But that gets hurled at women all the time. Obviously, that's not new information. But I ran a mental health practice in person for 10 years. And people would come in and they would hassle the doctor for things. They would hassle the therapists for things. They would hassle the front desk for things that everybody unequivocally said no about. We're not doing that. We don't do that. We don't do that paperwork. We can't prescribe that medication. No. And finally, somebody would be like, hey, can you come deal with this person? And I would just very politely walk up from the back of my office and say, hey, is there something I can help you with? And 100% of the time they would go, no, I'm fine, thank you, and leave. There were doctors in our office that had 40 years worth of credentials and all sorts of plaques and things on their walls that are very impressive. And I'm just the office manager in the back. And for whatever reason, people find that to be intimidating, but that's fine. People don't say it when they want to problem solve. They say it when they want to write you off as somebody who you can't work with. And that is never the case. In fact, I find the quote unquote difficult women who end up in my career trajectory to be the ones who are the most dynamic, the ones who are the most collaborative. Are there women that I haven't gelled with in the workplace? Absolutely. I can think of a couple who we just had very different philosophies on how you treat your coworkers. But by and large, the ones who get the reputation that I'm sure you and I carry around with some people are the ones who want to work the most with us or have the best ideas or need to be heard. And usually the difficult thing means you have an idea that is contrary to the way I want this to go. And you're being vocal about it because you found a problem that I don't want to address. And so that makes you difficult, not me, rigid and stubborn. I think the fact that nobody has ever said it to you probably speaks to just your presence in any room. You run a company that people either love or hate. There probably are not a lot of people who are indifferent towards your mission. What is it like to be the figurehead of that and to navigate all of the challenges that come with people who make decisions about what you do, not even because they don't understand, because they aren't even trying to understand. They don't care to understand.
Make Love Not Porn has been universally well received by people at large for 17 years. Okay. My only challenges have been financial, tech, and business ones. And they have not been about what people think of what I'm doing. They've been about the no adult content, knee-jerk compliance reaction. To give you an idea, some years ago, a friend of mine, a female journalist, wrote to me and she said, Cindy, I'm writing a book on how women aren't welcome on the internet. And she said, so what I'm doing is I'm reaching out to prominent feminists like you. I'm asking them to share with me the hate mail they receive and to talk to me about how they deal with it. And I said to her, I think that sounds like a terrific idea. I'm really sorry I can't help because I do not get hate mail. And I really don't. In 17 years of Make Love Not Porn, I have never had anybody send hate mail about it. And I think that's because when you understand what we're doing at Make Love Not Porn and why we're doing it, nobody can argue with it. People occasionally ask me, Cindy, how do you have the boldness to give talks to very corporate audiences and talk about Make Love Not Porn within the talk? Which I readily do because Make Love Not Porn is designed around my own business principles and philosophies. And so it's a business case study of my own business thinking. But my response to that is because it doesn't matter how corporate the environment is, how large the audience is, I know perfectly well that when I talk about Make Love Not Porn, everybody in that audience knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that's why I have no issue with bringing it up. It's an interesting business in that context.
Now that I think about it in the context of the conversations we have had, it's always been funding. It's always been, funding, banking, highly regulated industries who are scared about compliance risk.
Exactly.
In hindsight, I don't think you've ever said that any human takes specific issue with it. Like maybe we won't run it through the Bible Belt entirely, Or maybe we will. I don't know.
Many years ago, I was booked to come and give a talk to the students at the University of Missouri about Make Love Not Porn specifically. So I gave a talk. I was talking about our revenue share business model, and I lightheartedly said to the audience, it's a great way to pay off your student loans. Now, sitting in the audience was a local reporter who instantly wrote a piece about, woman recommends students prostitute themselves. And that shot out across a syndicated network of local papers. And so I was contacted by a local Christian radio station who was shocked and horrified and asked me to come on and explain myself. And I absolutely accepted any invitation like that. I went on this radio station and I explained what Make Love Porn was actually about, what I was doing. And by the end of the show, they were going, this is wonderful. Everybody check out Make Love Not Porn.
I probably haven't said this on the show before. I am definitely Jewish, but I grew up in an evangelical Christian cult. Basically a cult that to this day, has their own radio station. And I'm imagining you going into these studios, and it is the greatest image that I can possibly conjure in my head. But also, I would love to see the reactions of the pearl collectors that I grew up with. I have a friend who has a somewhat problematic mother-in-law, and we were at a thing together, and her mother-in-law was there, and she says to me, okay, that's my mother-in-law. Stay away from her. She's super intrusive. She doesn't like anybody. She will grill you and make you uncomfortable. Just stay away from her. And I looked at her and I said, introduce me. I was like, let's go. I want to go. So I would walk into that very happily because it's an opportunity to educate, but it's also an opportunity to show. I mean, you have nothing to be ashamed of. You have nothing to be shy about. You are building what you're building, and it's for them too. It's not to their exclusion. It's for them too. I love that we both lean that way because there are situations that you're supposed to run from that are going to be confrontational. And I'm like, let's go. I'm ready. Let's do it. So as we round out, first off, would love for everybody to know where they can find you, how they can engage with you, what ways you make yourself available. But also, if there is someone listening that just needs to hear why the world needs them, needs their voice, needs their skill, needs whatever, as a departure, what do you say to them?
The world needs your voice. Whatever you want to say, the world needs to hear it because there are so many people silencing themselves for all the wrong reasons. So the world needs to hear your voice. Whatever you want to put out there, trust me, the world wants it. In terms of finding me, and this may also be helpful. So first of all, I have a Substack. It's called Dear Cindy. I started that because people write to me and ask me things. And so I thought, let's formalize this. And you can write and ask me anything. And each week I answer one question from the ones that have been sent to me. You can absolutely follow me on LinkedIn. I am at Cindy Gallop on Instagram. If you're curious about my work, do check us out at makelovenotporn.com. Do support my work by signing up and subscribing. Subscriptions start at $10 a month. And also do check us out at makelovenotporn.academy, which is the sex education extension. We've just taken live in very early stage beta. We're still loading educators and content onto the platform, but we welcome real world testing. And we also welcome people who believe in our mission of bringing lifelong sex education to the world. And so we'd love you to become a paid member of the Academy. It's free for everyone to access, but you can pay just $100 a year to help fund our operations. You can absolutely find me on Facebook as well. And I have a website, cindygallop.com, where you can find out more about my personal coaching services and speaking.
You will get more out of an hour with Cindy than you will get out of an MBA. That's not me being grandiose at all. You will get more with an hour with Cindy about you, about your needs, about the ways that we torture ourselves that she will cut right through. Cindy, thank you so much. I adored having you here. You are welcome back anytime. Everybody, please go check out all of the different ways Cindy advised that you can find her. I love the Substack. I personally tend to gravitate toward LinkedIn just because that's where I am most of the time. But all of the content is great. And there are very good alcohol drinks there occasionally that you can partake in by proxy.